Games Workshop strikes again, this time by slipping suspicious packages in my mail. Fortunately, my time spent in association with the Imperial Inquisition has furnished me with certain techniques of analysis and identification. So let's give them a little go right now. Cardboard, right? Paper, that's to be expected. There's something more, there's highly restricted combat stimulants and more polymorphine and wait, what's that? Deceit and treachery. Well, it's Games Workshop, all right. But more than this, I deduce that this is none other than Assassinorum, execution force, and there's only one way I know to deal with that: a cracking unboxing and murder. Now that I've taken care of the outer shell, silenced it forever, let's have a look at the thing at hand. Assassinorum Execution Force. Assassinorum Execution Force is a fast-paced cooperative game for 1 to 4 players. Nice! I like a cooperative game, especially ones for 1 player. The back of the box looks promising, no doubt meant to evoke memories of the glory days of Hero Quest and Warhammer Quest and other such things from Games Workshop. Let me just get rid of this dreaded plastic, which I established once as the congealed salival fluids of dark and terrible demons from beyond the black. Okay, that's the plastic taken care of, so let's have a look inside the box and see what Games Workshop has deigned to bestow upon us in their latest wild lunge for cash and product loyalty. This is on a lot tighter than I thought. There we go. As expected, scads of Sprues. What do we got here? This looks like it is a very large bad guy of chaos, no doubt. Chaos minions, aye. Assassins on assorted little single sprues here for assassins. That's good. Tiny Games Workshop dice that we've come to expect. Bases, good, we'll need those, some of which are not slotted. That's very interesting for a standalone Games Workshop sort of thing. I'll have to examine this in detail later. Some more minions. What are these all about? Hey, get back here. Event. Well, that was certainly an event. This looks like all the cards involved. I'll examine those later. And it looks like we've got one giant shrink wrap for the rules and the board pieces and all of that sort of thing all together. There's all the assorted parts just ready for us to have a closer look at in a couple of minutes. But there is an important inclusion that I want to make a point about. They gave us some extra baggies. Now, too many games give us too many components and don't give us these little bags to keep them in. Good work, Games Workshop. I hope that's not the last good thing I have to say about this. It probably won't be. I'm optimistic. Let's take a closer look at all these bits. Before getting into the nitty-gritty about what's in the box, I'd like to have a talk about the box art. I think it's pretty good, but not a patch on some of the amazing box arts of old, here represented by the venerable Hero Quest by Les Edwards and Warhammer Quest by Jeff Taylor. That said, I think it holds its own with a nice ensemble of all the playable characters, none of whom hog all the space of the box, unlike our barbarian friends here. This helps to calibrate our expectations for Execution Force, setting it up as a fully cooperative effort to play, in contrast to these other games which, as their artwork suggests, feature plenty of opportunities to be selfish, both in-game by hoarding treasure, and out of the game by fighting over who gets to be the barbarian, the best character in all respects. At least that's what we tell beginners, while true masters select the dwarf, the real best character, while the rest of the table squabbles. Tragically, Execution Force does not feature a dwarf, which is its first real problem. The second big problem is the fact that Games Workshop did not credit anyone who worked on this game. And so I can't tell you who's responsible for this image. What we do get is a generic produced by the Games Workshop design studio credit in the rulebook, which I think is absolutely disgusting. If you're a designer or an artist of any kind out there, you should be absolutely horrified by this sort of non-crediting practice by companies such as Games Workshop. Well, I don't mean to bring this video down, that's not what it's about. Let's have a look at the inner parts of this game. Here's a little look at the rulebook, which I've just had a bit of a flip through. It's in full colour, which I approve of highly, and it's well organised, with the rules presented very clearly, with lots of supporting illustrations to reinforce the finer points of the game's rule set. The storyline set out for this game is terrible, and I hold it in evidence that Games Workshop really is losing its touch, and losing touch with its own setting too. Not that I can blame the uncredited author. After all, why try hard when no one will know it was you? Case in point, these assassin profiles look really good on the surface, but they're undermined by the most baffling thing you could ever include in a game that showcases these cryptic and inhuman masters of assassination from the future Imperium. They are all immediately given names and identities. So instead of dehumanized figures that we should meet with awe and terror, we are met with Victor and Clara and Silas, and I really don't understand why they would do this, because it completely undermines the anonymity stressed by the visual design of the characters and the cryptic nature of the Officio Assassinorum, which they just set up the page before. Components-wise, the board comes in 4 pieces, 3 of which join together, and 1 is a remote piece that represents elsewhere, the dread Temple of Shades. The 3 main pieces go together like this to form the astropathic sanctum where the bulk of the game's action takes place. The Temple of Shades represents the climax of the game, and it can only be reached by teleportation, which is the object of the game in the main part of the board here. Like a lot of Games Workshop's board games, this seems to be one that centres around risk management. It's as you try to work through this complex and locate the teleporter and the control bank which activates it. And that's done via these rooms here. Matter of fact, the control bank, which is this one, and the teleportarium are the only rooms that matter in the game. The other ones are only distinguished by how many squares you can stand in and whether or not they have a goon in there waiting for you, as indicated by these little chaos icons. There, you punch it out of there, nice and easy. And the other stuff on these frames, besides rooms, is stunned and alert tokens. There's also tokens that represent very limited quantities of equipment or special abilities and stuff that your assassins have. Very handy. During the game, you're going to be vexed by random events, which are detailed on these cards, as are stats for all of the adversaries you'll face, and all of the assassins you're going to take the part of. So let me just get the wrapper off, and we'll have a closer look at these, eh? The vast bulk of the cards are these events. There's a huge stack of them. Most of them I think will hinder you, but I saw 1 or 2 that will be beneficent. There's one called Ghostly Tide, I think, that stuns all of the Chaos Space Marines for a turn. Now, where is it? Yeah, Ghostly Tide. Good. Stunned Chaos Marines. Excellent. The bad guy cards are adorned with art and stats and details of their abilities, and on the back, a little picture of their miniature, painted way better than I ever will. Probably. The assassins get much the same treatment, though their rules are a bit more involved, and so their cards are double-sided. Note the complete absence of those names that annoyed me before. Here's a closer look at the sprues that come with the game. These are Chaos Renegades. This big one is a Chaos Sorcerer Lord with his little familiar here in the corner. And over here is his retinue of Chaos Marines. And here are the heroes of the game, the Assassins, on 4 small, separate sprues. These are identical to the ones that Games Workshop uses for its plastic single figures that it sells. And the Assassins here are in fact the only new miniatures included with this game. And that, my friends, is a problem. I don't want to get overly critical here. This isn't a review, this is an unboxing video after all. But what's coming out of the box is raising certain concerns, or red flags if you will. It's quite clear to me that not one of the miniatures included in this game were actually designed for this game. For example, what have we got here? We've got 2012 Chaos Renegades or Cultists from the Dark Vengeance starter kit. We have 2011 Chaos Space Marines. I'm not sure what they're from, if they're from anything at all. And a 2006 Chaos Lord with a great many options most of which have nothing to do with the game at hand. Even stranger is the assassin miniatures themselves. Now, 3 of these little sprues are dated 2014. Well, that's fine, it was just last year. But one, the Vindicare, is dated 2013. You'll notice they've all got scenic bases, but they're all shot up generic battlefield bases that don't relate directly to the game at hand. They clearly were not intended to be the centrepiece of a standalone game, a board game as it terms itself. It seems we're a long way now from the days of the Space Hulk reissue, which got a whole line of all new miniatures with lovely bases that actually reflected the setting. A Hulk, you see here, this Gene Stealer, bursting up from a floor panel. That's really good. And these are all snap-fit miniatures, meaning that they are very easy to snip away from the sprue and press together, and they're good to go in about 30 minutes after you open the box. The same can't be said for Execution Force, which I think is a complete misstep. If it's meant to entice new players, it's a real problem, because you don't confront new players with a 41-piece Chaos Lord with all these options and a labyrinthine possibility for variations of construction and all sorts of places where you can go wrong in gluing it together. That would be a very bad idea. What I actually think has happened is that they've got these new assassin models that they've had produced for a while, not uncommon, and they've decided that they want a vehicle for them. So they've created a game around those and whatever other models they could get. Maybe they've got an overstock of these, or maybe they're about to go out of production and they're going to liquidate what stock they can get and get as much of a return as they can. In any case, I think the design was done in reverse. The miniatures here don't serve the game. The game was created, it seems, to serve the miniatures. Of course, none of this necessarily means that the game itself isn't up to snuff. Matter of fact, the rules do read very well, and I'm looking forward to giving it a proper go in the near future. Although I do still think it is very poor form to include several models that require glue and arguably an experienced hand to assemble, especially in a standalone kit like this, and especially without the habitual glue required notice on the box, which is usually something that Games Workshop is right on top of with their products. Ah well, if you should happen to fall afoul of that particular gotcha though, take heart, because like the vast majority of board games that use miniatures, Execution Force works just fine without them. So you should have no trouble substituting a few of them with tokens, or, like I'm going to do, with existing models that you happen to have in your cupboard. Now, what do you think I should use for a Vindicare for the first couple of rounds? They like to kill from afar, and they're lethal and mysterious, and, aha! Who else but Medusa? Yeah. Ugh.